Hey, well, thanks for coming tonight. So, by the time I was 18 years old, I had read everything I could find by Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Diane de Prima, and I was ready to hit the road and look for adventure and ecstasy and religious visions. I felt like Don Quixote going out to find the windmills to fight. And what this show tonight is some of the visions and the things I found on the road. This first poem I wrote when I was 18 years old after I left Seattle and ended up in Huntington, West Virginia. A few months later, I was working at a hot dog stand as a car hop. Back in 1964 in West Virginia, that was men's work. And they paid me $3 a night plus tips. And if you really hustled, you got another $3 or $4. And a free, French fries and ham. And we'd have these philosophical discussions there at the car hop place. And this is a poem that came from that called Funny Farm Blues. I don't know nothing about art, but I know what I like. The fat, cracked lips surrounded by salt and pepper stubble belched at me one dead gray day. The one to be a philosophic leaf fall turn that got hung up on mediocrity and didn't quite make it. I have nothing against the Afro-American, he said, as he patted one well-manicured sequined fingernail hand tenderly on the black palm's thigh. And then I ran out into the street and began urinating on innocent cab drivers' tires. The movie was okay, but it wasn't in color. After they extracted my foot from his mouth, they took me to an unreal place and asked me to see petunias copulating in ink wads. They then reported to the waiting world that I had completely recovered, and their 9-year-old daughters were once again safe on the streets. They found him standing naked on the hill, arms stretched toward the wind, crying, "Love me, love me." It took only one bullet carefully placed in his beautiful head to kill him. So I wrote that. It was in the Marshall University Literary Magazine. I wasn't a student there, but my roommate was the editor of the magazine. And I couldn't use my name, I had to use my initials, and I went to a party a few months after this was published. And an older poet, he was 23 or 24, and he'd been in the Navy, he'd been around. And there was a lady there who said, "You gotta read this poem," and she pulled out this poem out of her purse and read it. And I said, "Hey, that's my poem, I wrote that." And she became my first wife. And I realized the value of words. So then in September of '65, Lyndon Johnson escalated the war and drafted 50,000 people. It was the first big draft of the Vietnam thing. And I got drafted. And I was at Fort Ord. And this was an ex-girlfriend of mine wrote and said that she was going to leave Huntington and go off to the big city of South Bend, Indiana, and go to school. And she was afraid to go out into the world. So I wrote this little poem. Pictures of a dead baby. A warty Italian immigrant. Tired factory workers carrying banana peelings home in dented lunch buckets. Disillusioned, newlywed high school girls wearing faded Sears and Roebuck sweaters. Little girls on Carmel Beach, happily playing with the waves and God. Unemployed Jippo loggers chewing Copenhagen. One-legged pedantic misfits demanding understanding. Cold-frosted Pyra Hall. A banquet hall as big as the sky. Humanity, Linda, accept it. Humanity. Take it, Linda. Worship it. So it was 1966, 67. I was at Fort Ord. It was kind of, I spent my whole 2 years at Fort Ord. It was kind of like a combination of being in high school and in a mental institution. But I read Catch-22, so I knew how to survive. And this is a little 3-minute novel I wrote about that time. And good, and you and it, and rock, and stone, and boy, and hand, and watch, and look, and see, and do, and be, and yes, yes, yes. Because of this overflowing, full to the brim, void of Virginia hills on a summer cricket frog sounds, and silver yellow moonlight, night percussions with spirals of electric coaster, San Francisco, Reedy Drive, San Jose, Mexican restaurant, jukebox, guitar and trumpet bullfight noise to Indian sitar drone of Fulham Street incense, 1967 mystic apartment with 4 orts, guns, killing consciousness of 7th level foretold in Mercer Island, 1966 Washington Ants House, over 3 packs of Salem's, with Jewish flashbacks of Huntington Library innocence, of cornstalk mutinized visions, tidy dry ladies, sweet simpy smiles, the similes of non-neo jazz cool, Norman Mailer, Loud Man, and Paul Craftsman there. Ohio Farm Road, sun out, thumb out, drop out, long-haired, sitting on bedroll, reading Shaw, waiting for magic carpet, hay wagon, only getting drunk, Cadillac, sad life, not even late, Portsmouth hot pass-through, to emerge 1 year later, drafted. See, people, I left with $5 and came back with sideburns. After eternity, looking back on Ryan Derrick's Flophouse time, through $5 birthday present glasses, had visions of not brainwashed, with dry, clean heads hiding under covers of U.S.-issued blanket, awaiting sacred wet dream of new fascist Goya Inquisition, Black Plague, Bob Dylan, train in borrowed bottom, wine bottle, freedom, talk, cry, laugh, breathe. Letter from Jane, screw by Monterey by sea, drowned out and tune in on seals. Threaten obscurity with fright reality portraits to be put down on sunshine pills that just work if you believe in Pan's Ferry after that. Waiting now, counting seconds. Fall back in green fag suit by Gilroy stoplight 2 a.m. Vomit crowd into sinister Corvair. Watch unpoetic attempt to make 2 reeling soldiers who shriek unjust, unfair, unreal. Bleary 10:30 Sunday morning Spanish neighborhood, mass behind church, stick finger in throat, gurgle satori. Old Greek opens coconut, trolley car groans. Flutist sings Stanton Street Love. Ride train, bus strike, walk Salinas nightly. Hear spade hookers moan for a 10 spot. Talk, walk, and him, and you, and us, and me, and more goldfish shouts bump into edges of aquarium. Ginsberg's people howling didn't suffer enough. Good and evil paradox get caught, dog-eared and put in pocket. Mustache grows and shrinks, an insane dance of off-key loot. Turntable speeds up, and we dig our fingernails into grooves in last-ditch effort to keep from being spun off in meadow and cattails. Don't ask why, just hang on. I saw a man who let go, and the cop kept mumbling about zombies. So I chuckled off into the sunset, goosing nurses with my nightstick. So then I got out of the Army, fled immediately to San Francisco, went out on Haight Street, did 3rd and Verona down by the Bay Bridge. And I had this dream, and I wrote this poem that was published in the Sausalito Belvedere Gazette, the Sutter's Bourgeoisie Gazette. And it got sent all over the world. I got letters from France, Venezuela, and everything, so that's pretty cool. And they did a picture of the drawbridge. It's called 3rd Street Love Song. So the little one died today, he said, as we walked down where the ships were huddled, down past the drawbridge, down where we threw rocks in the blue-black canal, and the giant ships, freighters, moaned and pulled on the ropes tied to the piers, tugged and moaned and tried to talk the land into following out into the bay, tried to reason softly, moaning and calling, come, come, break free, come. And the land held. And the little girl was only 3, her ship, but her eyes clouded over, and she died. Then I got out of San Francisco, ended up on the Yuba River. I thought the apocalypse was coming, so I wanted to go out and hang out in the river and watch it happen. It hasn't happened yet. So North Fork River Expanded Haiku number 3. This mountain river light, your lips touching my forehead. This song-filled tree, each bird laughing the name of his God. This spring-born leaf gently rocking the newly washed clouds. Now this one, My old lady, as we used to say back in those days, and I lived down on the Colorado River in the Mojave Desert. And one night we had ingested some sort of consciousness expanding substance. And we were watching the fire slowly burn down, and we were trying to get it together to put another piece of wood on the fire. And all of a sudden it was like I could read Jane's thoughts. And this was a poem, I don't know if I wrote it or she wrote it or where it came from, but it's called The Monk. To forget who I would almost likely let, I must needs walk this holy man path. I followed my love to the garden one day, at a golden hook I did see you pray. Now soon began that sailor to dance, and he spied me, was it fate or chance? He stayed me up, he stayed me around, but his golden gaze I did soon stare down. When I and my pride went to claim my prize, my lover said to me with no sorrowful eyes, was it me that you won with righteous chivalry? So keep now your pride, it's no chauvinist for me. There's nothing but my pride left here with me. My eyes so full I cannot see. Since sweetheart and sailor alike did go, I'm on new mad and afraid for my soul. Okay, so living on the Yuba River, early 70s. I took the 2 years and kind of telescoped them into one story called The Snake. It was late summer on the Yuba, the time when blackberries were falling off the vine. I was having my usual trouble being obsessed with one or two concepts that continually showed up in anything I tried to write. So I was mainly concentrating on painting and learning a few blues licks. The days stretched forever, a lifetime between sunrise and sunset. It was the summer we had more psychedelics than food. We'd scrounge blackberries all week to eat, saving the pinto beans and the used coffee grounds for a formal Friday night feast. When the weekend rolled around, we'd be there lean-eyed and razor-sharp. My gangster friend would show up, hike downriver, load us up with beer, cigarettes, and mescaline. We wouldn't know how to talk after listening to the river run by all week, so we'd just grin and drink beer and eat mescaline and have private jokes with blue jays and squirrels, as our other friends, wanderers from another reality, would plunk their pink hairless bodies onto the water-carved rocks and remark how lucky we were to be able to live here, and how, if they could get free of whatever bondage they had, they'd be here all the time, too. And I'd just grin again and look off cockeyed at the circling hawk. That summer, our closest neighbors were a couple kids from Marin County. They had been raised by good liberals and had lived together ever since they were 14. They got stoned the first time when they were 15 and dropped out of school shortly thereafter and ended up just hanging out at the boys' parents' house. The liberal mom was frantic. What's he going to be? She'd beseech the heavens and wring her hands pitifully. The parents made me into the Rousseauian man of the woods who had turned their little boy into a man. People expect you to act a certain way if you live in a beautiful cabin by the woods. By the end of summer, it had all changed, of course, and they were sure I had ruined Donnie for the workaday world completely, but that's only to be expected. Donnie and Kathy were outrageously happy as we showed them around our Eden. Showed them all the good swimming holes and the tree you could sit under to hear the singing. and the place you could look during full moon and see two perfectly formed mountains sloping down to the silver-white rapids with a deep purple star-dappled night sky, a fat moon rising like a bishop or like a magic blessing, round and complete, and all viewed at by a thumb jut rock just big enough to sit next to you, and a stomach-teasing 100-foot drop down to that lapping raging river. And showed them trails to rivers even deeper in the woods, and talked grand stories over the nighttime campfire, and watched it come down river for 2 days and said the season's getting late. They'll all start crawling down lower soon, down closer to the flatlands, at least a couple thousand feet lower and warmer till they can find a good warm cave to sleep in for the winter. The people from Berkeley, horn-rimmed and serious with their books on trees and their down bags and their buck knives, asked me if they could set up at the first camp between the cabins, and I said it's cool with me and I'm paying. We got loaded together and they stood around and watched us. My dogs walked around them stiff-legged and mistrustful. The first dragging snow of winter rippled my spine, and my yellows turned cold, and I made some excuse to go for a hike. Later at Donnie's cabin, we talked about how weird things were starting to feel. Donnie said he saw it again sliding past his porch about 10:30 that morning, and it should be down by my place soon. Said it looked big, maybe 10 to 12 rattles. We started back down the river because it was almost too dark to see with the weak flashlight we had. We felt our way around the rock ledge and rounded the corner, ducked under the hanging tree limb that blocked the path, and entered the Berkeley people's camp. The girl, who was well grounded in Sartre before she switched over to Ewell Gibbons, spotted it first. "Snake! Snake!" she cried. And I saw it about 10 feet away from me, heading downriver. It was 3.5 feet long and as thick as my forearm. I stood there, blinded by its golden aura, as the man with thick lenses staggered towards it with a 15-pound rock and smashed its head. I felt the rocks, river, pine trees scream and whirl together in outrage. The Berkeley people were ecstatic. "We're like the pioneers," one of them gleefully cried, pulling out his buck knife, striding manfully over to the carcass. "Let's skin it," he said, holding the even head regal being up by its tail as its smashed head put blood drops onto the smooth river rocks, and I disappeared into the forest and vomited. The next day, the Berkeley people came up to the cabin and said, "We ate it. It was good. Tasted kind of like chicken." The one with the horn-rimmed glasses had the skin around his cowboy head. They stayed and talked, and I became colder until finally I was shivering and close to crying. "You didn't have to kill it," I said. "This was Snake's home, not yours. He lived here for 6 years. You were here 3 days. Go home." They left that day. Donnie and Kathy decided to spend the winter there on the river, and their parents freaked out and dragged them back to the city where they got Donnie a gas truck delivery job. The leaves turned, and winter came early to the river that year. Okay, we're up to 1975. I met Martha. And this is a poem I wrote for her. "You're a goddess shining golden in my dreams. Your eyes, blue stars, your laughing ocean like love, a sweet nighttime ride, your long singing body, a shelter, a journey, paths through the gravity-fed misery. Cool, delicate fingers touching my face. Legs wrapped around hips, lips kissing nipples. My religion is love, my temple, you." Yeah. Spring song number 35. The lizard sits on the rock. He lifts his head, blinks his eye. 10 years pass. Artists and angels fly together oblivious to that ball of dirt churning and revolving below them. How many of these sky dancers crash and lay twisted and burned in the mud? 10 years pass and dynasties are created. When angels burn, they smolder, and from the remaining ashes reform, their eyes sharper, their visions clearer, their wings brighter. The sun warms a rock next to a wild and green river. The lizard sits sunning himself on the rock. He lifts his head, blinks his eyes, and 10 years pass. The artists dry off their new-grown wings and jump off laughing into the sky. Okay, now we're getting into the kid years. They're not so little anymore. What sounds better, a duplex near the park or a house next to 8th? I knew I deserved it. I've been laughing at just this exact situation all my life. Most of my writing had this morbid fascination with the big squeaky wheel. I thumbed my nose at all the poor fools trapped in the maze. Work, I'd scoff. Bills, I'd snicker. It's for dummies. Now, like a little boy playing with a dangerous snake on a short stick barefoot, I've been bit. I shouldn't have been so preoccupied with it. I should have just let it in. How much is the house? Only $340 a month for a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. $340 a month. I was thinking a cage you could live in free. But 8th is the busiest street in town. Yep, that's why it's so cheap. Cheap, I thought, is relative. In fact, me being broke makes cheap a poor or close neighbor and friend. So we decided to drive out and look at the duplex near the park. On the way out, we talked about the state of the world. El Salvador, Rancho Seco, food stamps, lipids, charismatic Bible counters, Atlanta, and UFOs. Jing Jing lifted his retaining bar and started jumping all over Ryder and Pasquale's lap in the back seat. Yeah! Jing Jing yelled, throwing himself towards Pasquale. Hey, wait a minute, Pasquale said, catching Jing Jing mid-flight, laughing, getting ready to throw him at Ryder. Marta reached over the seat and shook a fist at the kids. That's enough. Just knock that shit off right now. We went back to conversing like normal, rational adults. When a shriek of abandonment issued from the back seat, and I put on my incredulously outraged voice and said, "What is the matter back there?" Can't you kids understand simple English? Jing Jing shook his head no. I'm trying to drive and watch out, Wonton. I stepped on the brakes and slowed down while the Fleetwood in front of me made its turn. See, I said, to the rearview mirror reflection of 6 innocent no eyes. Come on, you guys, etc., etc. We're sorry, Daddy. Just lighten up and give us some space, you know, or else I'll up over your head with it. Turn here, babe. We wheeled by the duplex and it reminded me of where I spent my time in the Army. Only instead of shit green, the color was Dust Bowl brown. How much for this place? $375. Marta put a little check mark beside the address on her list, and we went over to Mariposa Street to pick up the goat's milk. Marta's 5 months pregnant and has the most beautiful blue eyes I've ever seen. It still amazes me how well she can steer through life. Left to my own devices, I tend to go in ever smaller circles. She calls me a corkscrew, and she's my wine bottle, and I'm so glad My friends in the Bohemian quarters can't quite believe it. You remember that hairy guy who used to walk around the woods naked playing sax? Being followed by all those skinny dogs? Always called himself a poet? Well, he's down in the city, dragging concrete blocks around all day for a living. Got 15 kids now. Yeah, old crazy Wonton sure went through some changes. No shit, man, he passed that pipe. Well, babies, I guess it's time for my little moral or lesson in this piece. You know it's going to be the same thing I've been saying all along. You know, the veil, life's illusions, the curtain that shimmers, the story in the seeker's water pitcher. It's the same place. The hut in the jungle, the cave in the desert, the mansion in Grass Valley, the crash pad, the hobo camp near Oxnard, the hobo camp near Yuma, next to the mission on the reservation, the car, the house in the woods, the ranch, the Arab hotels in the Tenderloin. It's all the same damn place. And what matters is the nurturing you can manifest. You make love, and you make love, and the flesh you create carries the most beautiful souls you can envision. And what appears to be servitude is liberation, just like all those shiftless unemployed dogs used to mow to one another down in the street corner. And it gets good after a while. And all you've got to worry about is all that other extraneous bullshit. That stuff like nuclear bombs, politicians, making next month's rent, keeping your various covers straight, not burning the soup, or getting the blocks too crooked under the mobile homes. All you got to do is just relax, and the universe, you know, will take care of itself all right. In fact, you can take all that other stuff and put it on a big barge, and just hang on to love. And love will carry you anywhere you need to go, and that's about it. Just that, I love you, and here's my mother's gift. These next 3 poems are to our son Miles, who lived 7 weeks in 1981 and died of SIDS. My son Miles was born at 7:41 a.m. September 18th, 1981. A little after 7, dilation was complete. And as Martha went into transition, we put on a morning raga by Raleigh Shankar on the record. We woke the other kids up, and they stood around all sleepy-eyed and awestruck. Martha moaned like she does when we're making love, and then she pushed Miles out. The sitar and tabla were pulsating together in the park, leading us into a beautiful dance of sunrise and birth. Miles stopped halfway out and hollered, "Hey!" and came flying out into my hands. I placed him on Martha's belly, and the whole room was filled with tears and sunlight and laughter. The sitar and drum spun and jumped and bounced us out wide-eyed in the brilliant September daylight. 8 days after my son's death. Last week, my little boy Miles died. And now his cremains are in my top dresser drawer. They're in a 4-inch square envelope. All my friends told me they didn't know what to say. I tell them there wasn't anything to say. After he died, we went to a lady who told us about a group for the parents of children who died. She gave us a bundle of papers. She called them a grief packet. Through my tears, I had to laugh. Death makes the survivors create right angles, squares, rectangles, anything with straight lines and 90-degree turns to contain the howling void and compartmentalize the pain. Miles died, and my house was racked with sorrow. Just put a drawing for that one. 2 passes over the same terrain. After the vasectomy, he felt like he'd entered a monster. All the souls he felt pounding inside him, crying for release, suddenly picked up their belongings and left. Now his scrotum felt like an abandoned hotel bar. He hadn't stopped making love. He was just more serene about it. The progression was simpler. Being detached, he could now be detached, and his burning fevers didn't die down. They still sped up and down his spine, tripping his chocolate levers like he was some sort of meaty pinball machine. 4 days after his vasectomy, when his newborn son died, when the sky's curtain was torn back, and all he could see was an insane, horribly grinning face laughing down at him, when he most stood to lose his reason, when he couldn't find reason for anything, when the most rational thing he could do was cry, his wife, the mother of his last child, his wings and warm crutch, took him to their cheery bedroom and they made love. His balls, sore bruised and recent stitched, each time he came, and his wife cried and held him inside her, and he cried and clung to her. His little, ancient, newborn dead son hovered over their heads and gathered up all those homeless souls that were pouring out of his severed body, and his little boy led those released souls up through the ceiling like a laughing Pied Piper. And he and his wife were left there alone on the bed, and he suddenly felt very quiet inside. The rain started up after his son's funeral, and his pain was transformed and externalized into howling winds and weeping skies. Okay, this one was 1982. It was I just kind of kept track of what happened one day. It's good to do that every once in a while. Full moon with tears in the green home. 8:54 a.m. Youngest son comes in crying. He rebumped the same toe he bumped yesterday. 9:40 a.m. Mommy cries because Daddy spends all the money on pot. 9:45 a.m. Daddy cries inwardly because reality never lets up. 10:37 a.m. Youngest son cries because his friend, the writer's son who lives up the street, won't let him play with the toy turtle. 12:11 p.m. Mommy cries because the oldest son aggravates her past point of endurance. 12:13 p.m. Oldest son cries because he feels that Mommy has treated him unfairly. 12:14. The writer's son who lives up the street pokes youngest son with bow. Youngest son cries. 12:37. Youngest son cries because he isn't getting any Kool-Aid and his back hurts. 6:45. Youngest son cries because he has to eat his mashed potatoes before he can go play. 11:21 p.m. Daddy sits in front of typewriter crying. 11:26. The poem appears on the blank page. The tears fall on dreams and nurture desires. The dreams grow like flowers. The blossoms have faces, eyes, lips to touch, bodies to separate themselves with. All the glittery trappings of an unfolding future expanding on the action of us. Our family lives in an exploding artichoke. We cartwheel slowly among the floating leaves, experiencing our dreams living us walking around in solid. Okay, 1983, 20-year high school class reunion. People said, "What do you do?" And I say, "I'm a poet." And they said, "Well, write us a poem." So this is the little book we got for our 20-year reunion. Pictures of us all at the Pine Mountain Resort. Issaquah, Washington. Issaquah memories for the class of '63. We lived in a blue-black rainforest. Mount Si caught a hard-edged slash across the heavy gray sky. We grew up among the wet cow pastures, riding muddy, fat school buses through the blackberry-lined country roads. We drank hot chocolate in warm Scandinavian kitchens. In the summer, the steady pounding of a pile driver throbbed across the lake, and even the rain wrapped us in a tender veil of reassuring innocence. In this cocoon of chainsaw smoke, broke-down log trucks, and steamy windowed kitchens, we dreamt our dreams, bragging of how we would change the world, of how we would live differently than our parents in their two-dimensional dreams. Then we went out into that world like salmon to the ocean, to return 20 years later, grayer, rounder, balder. We met again 20 years later, wearing wrinkly grown-up masks, pretending to be responsible adults, exchanging snapshots of our children, our husbands, our wives. We talked about jobs and other important things. In our minds, time became magical. Old, dusty dreams sparkled, and a million what-ifs were laid to rest, as we once again cruised around Lake Sammamish in a '57 Chevy, dreaming of tomorrow and wondering what we'll find around the next curve. When I wrote this, I had a '57 Chevy Impala. And a friend of mine wrote and said, "They didn't have Impalas in 1957. Okay, we're coming up into 1990. I remember keeping still. Spirit hovered behind me, whispering in my ear, "It's not here. There's more to find. You need to search further. Keep looking." I wandered for years, sleeping in alleys, being snowed in mountain cabins, living in rented houses on the edges of ugly cities. I would set up, unpack my tools, my pens and paints, and begin working, catching the prayers and images on paper. Then Spirit would glide up to me and say, "No, not any longer. It's not here anymore. It was only resting. It has moved away again. We've got to keep moving. We can't lose it. There, see, just went around that corner." I met other seekers, and our restlessness created a vast force field of energy around us. Many were flung off into the darkness by the centrifugal force of our worldly desires. One day, I remembered keeping still the way the old ones travel. Then my wife took me to this mountain. We sat there together in the manzanita, holding hands and listening to Spirit. He sang with the bird's tongue and bees' wings. His voice swirled around the oak leaves, singing, "Here is where you can wait for your strength and your clarity to focus." We dug a warm cave for Spirit to live in. We gave him prayers and cornmeal and set him facing north on a piece of red flannel. And now we built this house on his broad shoulders. And now, as he travels through time and space, everywhere we look, we see Spirit, and everything we hear is Spirit singing. Golden Gate Visitation in 1990. The 80s were over, and my Birkenstocks worn out as I flapped across the marble floor like a homeless junkie, broke, cut off from therapy, left to fin in the soft-spoken museum afternoon sunlight for myself. I was in the Asian art section, sketching a few dream figures from the Planet's Guidebook, and had just gotten to Buddha when a black guard glanced over my shoulder at my drawing. Taking notes, he said, looking over my shoulder. Oh no, the artist at work, excuse me. He turned around and came back. That's wonderful. I wish I had time to do that, he said. Uh-huh, I said, jump-starting the left side of my brain with the correct vowel consonant groupings. Yeah, I just got married, he said, looking at me with soft brown eyes. My pastor told me I got to take care of business first, then I can do the creative stuff later. Know what I mean? I know what you mean. I carefully modulated, testing the sounds. Then all the statues behind me began slowly swaying and moving their arms, and the guard turned into Buddha. His face, the same one I'd just been sketching. He talked some more about duty and art. Asked me what I did for money. I told him I kept the books for a rug merchant, but pretty soon I was going to make $20,000 a year writing and painting and performing my poetry. That's nice, he said again, holding out his hand. I'm Dennis. I'm John. All the statues, frozen in new positions, cocked their heads listening to us. Then he walked away and came back a few minutes later. Oh, John, pouring in fair old field, he sang. You know that old gospel? By that time, I was busy again, shading a nipple, so all I could do was give an affirmative grunt. Okay, so I'm going to have my friend Chris come up and help me in this poem, because I can't play the saxophone and read the poem at the same time.
Well, I hope I can help.
All right.
Chicago, 40 years later. June 21, 1992. Lake Michigan jetty, dead alewives, floating in the tide. Waves crash in at 2-second intervals. Wind pounds the tree, pouring straight onto shore. Energy, heart, in land covered in steel girders. Chicago, 1992. East City, one side, charging, red eye bull constantly, breaking positive, smashing negative. Trail explorers, the up, down, high tech transide, winner, deliverance, slave, all rap, and ready, trap, coding, filling up between shrink and Chicago, Hawaii, race of Smellion in 1992. Thanks guard, pro-mandarin hang Next, in little brick houses built on expressionist, the land in giant the eyes slave, all, Freddy, come, let's focus on the Chicago, Money, 1992. Thank God the three entrances. Funny jackrabbits hang out by the hoping for a quick hit.
It's a true story. Okay, back on the West Coast here. Eulogy for Susan. Today we went to the beach below Loma Land and put Granny's remaining ashes in the ocean. Tide pools and the reflections of surfers rippled this afternoon beneath thick stroked gray clouds as Granny's ashes washed out from the shore. Then her soul was received by the invisible children of Loma Land, going divine in the sunset, singing and hugging, telling her they hadn't forgotten how glad they were she'd come back, that they had missed hearing her heart. And Granny sparkled and became a young woman and a little girl, and she ran off with her friends, ran off out into the setting sun. And on earth, reflecting this welcome, a group of young Christian students performed an impromptu baptism offering their souls to Jesus, while surfers curled in lazy arcs out on the horizon, each wave another prayer as Granny's ashes washed out from the shore. For 7 years, her dust had spun in the currents, testing the air, building her stamina, slowly circling the events of her life in an ever higher, wider spiral, following the bus routes in Nevada County, resting beside Sydney, her soul companion, circling higher and higher, watching her grandchildren's children playing in the surf as their ashes washed out away from the earth. Long squads of pelicans hugged the coast, counting the tombstones that had sprouted on the Point Loma military reservation. The pelicans were God's jewelers, searching for souls to string like pearls on a necklace to carry to heaven as a gift. And the singer, standing naked on the shore with his wife and daughter, watching the souls flying to heaven, heard their songs and sang one back. Let your soul scatter in the north wind, Granny Sue. Ride the hawk's eye, fly wide, harp player, and see your path clear, riding the tide's flow to God. And now at last, brown powdered white bone Granny floats out in the tide. Okay, we're up to 1992. Blood Moon Monsoons. Blood Moon Monsoons. Our Earth's menstrual blood runs hot down her legs. Riding the blood-red river of love, together we touch and stroke and lick. Hurricanes pound our bodies. Boulders roll below in the rushing current. Our oceans smash against rock jetties, break into 20-foot-high walls of white foam, and jump up into the dark gray sky. Hawks circle above us, shrieking love, and tectonic plates shift in orgasmic release. My salty sperm pours onto your tangled delta and mixes with the red, hot flow of your ocean-bound river. Rain and tears and blood fall for a week. Then finally, you and I, each one inside the other, calm now, in the eye of the storm, slip back on our separate egos and rest up for the next deluge. This dream of water now in front of me singing. Gaia rains her memories down on us in the little snakes of water falling from the sky that carry life to the roots of our world. Then the snakes become the clouds, oceans, rivers, and creeks swimming through our dreams, creating our worlds, singing all the ancient songs. This dream of water now in front of me singing, this rock creek, this little rapid hitting small rocks, laughs and slithers down the draw through the oaks of Manzanita. This creek, gone dry last summer, now full to bursting. This gate to another world where my daughter's soul caught back up with me almost 20 years ago, this laughing snake, I carry your soul in my heart. And because we're all poets, and our bodies are 98% memory and 750% joy, we spend our days singing these mad, splashing songs. I sing this prayer to Gaia as our ancestors' molecules dance in the bubbling rapids, dance along the water's surface, flickering their forked tongues of memory in the air. Dancing on the point. It's easy to travel into the past, Dupree, my oldest son, said, passing me the pipe. The future is a little trickier. We were in his time traveler, an early V-Dub microbus with medicine bags banging from the ceiling, bubblegum trading cards that Jerry Garcia glued on the spaces between the windows. He had just returned from Babylon, talking McLartys in parking lots with the skeletons who had gathered there to party with us. We're given these meat bags for a minute or so to wear like kids playing dress up, I told him. We try on different costumes and faces, do our little dances, and jump back out into the sky. Then our clacking bones spend eternities chasing after us, trying to catch up. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, it's all the same out there. I exhaled a cloud of blue smoke faded lives, and my wife danced into my mind. The flame of our love burns hotter each moment, covering the sides of reality like a delicate filigree of candle wax. And today, this second, as I scuttle across these keys, I've been with Martha 18 years. Only the length of a kiss. Only one soft whisper of love. Only an embrace older than time, older than the mountain of bones we use as our bed. Now every time we make love, our ancestors' skulls shift and slowly settle, smiling in their own sweet memories of pleasure. Life goes on this way, eating, singing, suffering, working, creating, loving, life, dreaming life into life. But what's the point, Dupree asked? Babies and cabins in the mountains? Exactly! Yes! The point, I said, jumping up and bumping my head on the V-Dub roof, is you, now, here, living this instant of eternity, and yes, babes in the woods if it comes to that. Or broken bottle, asphalt, shit-filled plastic baby diapers and a job at the packing plant. Anything's probable, and every step is another crossroad. The point is to see the step. Find the right trails through the maze, know how to navigate through the shadows, study the secrets of light. The V-Dub had become too small for me. During my own younger space-time exploration days, the buses had seemed immense. Back then, there was room enough for 6 seekers. Their boots, scarf, brown rice, tiger balm, books, and bags of dirty clothes, plus any hitchhikers and all their packs and dogs we had on the way. Now, I feel the whole interior myself. That's one of the side effects of wearing these meat bags. The soul keeps on expanding into universe, and pretty soon you're bursting at the seams. Since I was getting too big now, we stepped outside. Over to the west, by the lake, I could hear my daughter as she sat singing to the inner city kids swimming over the summer camp. Her song was the same one she once sang 6,000 years ago to her infant son on the banks of the Nile. The same one heard from the gypsy wagons in Italy in 1885. Then our youngest son, Django, came whizzing by on his skateboard. He squirted us both with seltzer water and said, "That's old hat, kindergarten shit, everybody knows that stuff. I'm alive now, ready to go, let's go." Listen, you're free. Dreaming of me, dreaming of him, dreaming of Cerelia's dream of Martha, dreaming of Django, us all sitting on opposite sides of the universe, talking to each other through tin cans tied together and connected by love. Then we joined hands and made a circle on top of the highest mountain in powdered domes. Dad, Granny Sue, and our little boy Miles drove up from the north in a ghost RV and joined us in our dance as we spun clockwise round and round together inside the never-ending point of eternity. So my mom, after a long illness, died in November, and I wrote this for her the night I found out she died. There's plenty of room in this ghost RV, room for you, room for me. Baby, now our souls are free. You'll find it free from pain and misery. Better come and go with me. We'll lighten up our heavy load, head on down that old road. Maybe just you wait and see. You'll find it free from pain and misery. Better come and go with me. I waited for you, you caught up with me. Now we're as happy as birds in a tree. Better because our souls are free. You'll find it free from pain and misery. Better come with me. So climb on here next to me. Cruise around in luxury on a highway to heaven in a GMC. Now our souls are free. Climb on in this ghost RV, with goodbye to family. We're here to eternity. Maybe now our souls are free. You'll find it free from pain and misery. Better come with me. You'll be young again and so pretty. You'll feel joy and you'll find peace. Maybe now your soul's really. You'll find it free from pain and misery. And come go with me. Thanks for coming tonight. We're in the present. There's some wine back there and lots of pretzels.